Hey everybody, CVH here, and today I'm going to be talking about 5 cards from Heroes of Skyrim that have really stood out to me over the past 2 weeks or so since the expansion launched. As you all know, Heroes of Skyrim is the most recent Elder Scrolls Legends expansion, which introduced some fun things to the game like werewolves, shouts, dragons, all kinds of things, and many of the cards have seen a lot of play in existing top tier decks and even created a few new types of decks of their own. So in today's list, I'll be doing a top 5, but I don't think you guys should place too much emphasis on the order in which I place these cards. Obviously, all 5 of these cards are going to be fantastic, amazing cards that we just love to see, regardless of where I place them on the list. They see different kinds of play in aggro, control, mid-range decks, and they're just very different and do different things. So they're all fantastic, and I wouldn't really worry too much about where I place them on the list, but top 5 lists are just fun to do, so I decided to do them in this way. I'll also be rating the cards not only on constructed playability and how often we see them in top tier decks, but also I'll be choosing cards for this list that I just really enjoy the design of. I think these cards are really fun. They add things to Legends that we didn't have previously, and cards just are really intriguing in addition to obviously being very powerful. So without further ado, let's get into number 5. Number 5 on my list today is Shearpoint Dragon. 6 cost 4/4, giving a creature -2/2 on summon, and when you reduce a creature's power or health with another effect, reduce it by an extra 1. So Shearpoint Dragon is actually going to be the only dragon on our top 5 list today, although several others that I'm not putting on the top 5 list are amazing cards as well. This card just represents a huge tempo swing the turn you're able to play it, especially if you're able to get something with a ward, such as Windkeep Spellsword or Daggerfall Mage, and it synergizes very well with cards that are already existing in top-tier competitive decks, like the Curse Goblin Skulk package in Midrange Archer, Murkwater Shaman, especially in Assassin, cards like Murkwater Witch. You just see a lot of those cards already, and Shearpoint Dragon is causing them to see even more play. A very powerful card for mid-range decks, and has really pushed the Dragon Ramp Scout deck to the limelight. I think this card is one of the reasons that deck is seeing so much play, in addition to Woodland Lookout, allowing for some consistent heal for the strategy. The stats aren't bad, the effect is very powerful on curve, it can combo with itself, it represents a reasonable threat, not basically because of its stats, because if you let this card live even after it's gotten its summon effect value, you always have that little fear in the back of your mind of your opponent having another copy of it, which can then reduce something by -3/3. It even combos with the Agility Shout from the set, Drain Vitality, even though that card hasn't seen the most play, but Shearpoint Dragon has seen play as a 3 of in many top tier decks, and I expect that to continue for the coming months. Number 4 on this list is the only legendary I'm going to put on this top 5, and that is Ancano, a card I immediately fell in love with the moment I saw it as previewed. 8 cost 5/5, breakthrough, summon, deal 5 damage, your actions have breakthrough. So really quickly, let's compare this to another card we have right in front of us, Shocking Wamasu, which has less stats and deals less damage, and is more limited in that it can only target a creature. Used to be Wamasu could go face, but they balanced that because it's a common and that was happening a lot in Arena, I suppose. But yeah, Ancano. Even if it were just an 8 cost 5/5 that said summon, deal 5 damage, this card would be very powerful. In fact, you can often forget that it even has breakthrough, or that it gives your actions breakthrough too. That's almost never really too relevant, although it can just be icing on the cake if you're an aggressive deck that's using cards like Firebolt, Ice Storm, Lightning Bolt on creatures. All of a sudden you can get some face damage as well. That's actually the only real downside of the card if you're playing Ancano in a control deck, such as Control Mage, where it sees an awful lot of play. Because if you're using a card like Ice Storm after using Ancano to deal some damage to a creature, you have to really mind your opponent's life total, because you might not want to be giving them extra cards off of the destruction of their runes if they're close. And that's a lot of the reason, along with other cards, that control decks probably won't be doing much attacking at all early, even if those attacks wouldn't be destroying runes themselves. But Ancano's value is pretty clear. It's a very simple card, it's a very powerful card. 5 damage on someone, just a tempo swing. There are cards like Iron that it kills, Sower of Revenge, Thorn Hist Mage, really powerful cards that until Ancano, and even afterwards, because Ancano is a unique legendary, but yeah, they're just kind of hard to deal with for a deck like Control Mage, and they have Lightning Bolt, they have Piercing Javelin, but it doesn't feel great to use Javelin on those cards when more threats exist later in the game. Ancano puts some pressure on the board, which makes it good for more aggressive decks too, while taking off a substantial amount of power and health from your opponent's board as well. Good for control, good for pressuring, one of the most powerful legendaries, I think, in Intelligence now. Number 3, I'm actually going to be moving over to the dual attribute cards with Sorcerer's Negation. It shouldn't really surprise anybody that I'm including this on my personal top 5 cards of the set, because I just love Sorcerer. It's always been one of my favorite classes to play, and Sorcerer's Negation has made me love it that much more. Just a really, really powerful, versatile card. 2 cost, silence a creature, then deal 2 damage to it. If you had told me leading up to Heroes of Skyrim that there would be a card released that would make me take Firebolt out of some decks and take Shadowfen Priest out of some decks in Sorcerer, I would have maybe called you crazy, but Sorcerer's Negation has simultaneously made me do both of those things in certain decks, and in other decks I've been keeping Firebolt in but taking Shadowfen Priest out, or maybe vice versa even. This card just does so much by itself, and you're only paying 1 additional Magicka compared to Firebolt. Being able to silence a creature, then deal 2 damage to it, again, along with Shearpoint Dragon, has given the game another amazing answer to cards like Daggerfall Mage, which maybe weren't oppressive before, but were definitely one of the hardest cards to answer in the game, along with cards like Windkeep Spellsword, giving you an answer to those wards, giving you an answer to cards like Gardener of Swords, which buff themselves with items. Really powerful card, even for aggressive decks, because, hey, now we have a more reasonably costed silence for instead of Shadowfen Priest to just bypass those guards. A lot of my problem with Shadowfen is that, you know, it was basically just an auto-include in most endurance decks, even for an aggressive one. You know, like, I just need a silence to get past a guard, don't even care that it costs 5, but now we have more options, and Sorcerer's Negation is a much more Magicka-friendly way to get by those guards. It's been pretty much a staple in every single mid-range Sorcerer deck I've seen post Heroes of Skyrim, and I expect that trend to just continue. It's good offensively, it's good defensively, in addition to your other cards that remove things from the board. And of course, as a Sorcerer lover, I just absolutely love it. Give me more cards like this. Number 2 on my list is also an Intelligence card, and I'm realizing now that this kind of looks like I'm saying Intelligence got all the best stuff in this expansion. While it did get some really cool tools, this is also my personal top 5 list, like I said, also based around how much I like the cards and their design, so of course it'll be a little bit skewed towards blue. But 5 cost, 5/5 Thief of Dreams. Summon to see a vision of 2 of your opponent's cards. Guess which one is in their hand. If you're right, draw a copy of it. Another immensely powerful card. On the surface, 5 cost 5/5 already isn't horrible, and you're not even just getting a 5 cost 5/5 with a 50% chance to draw a random card. You have some control over that, and even if you miss, you get some knowledge on what is in your opponent's hand. The only time it's really a 5 cost 5/5 is if your opponent simply doesn't have anything in their hand whatsoever. Then you're not getting any additional benefit really, but how often does that actually happen? 5 cost 5/5, and you're seeing a vision of 2 cards, one of which is in their deck. So the control I'm talking about really encourages you to be up to date on the meta, what popular decks are playing, and how they are playing the game, and the turns leading up to turn 5. This is a kind of card design that really encourages a lot of knowledge on the meta. Because if you're playing a game against a Control Mage, for example, when you play Thief of Dreams on 5, you may have played cards up to that point that would have been good Lightning Bolt targets, and your opponent didn't play Lightning Bolt on them, so if Thief of Dreams shows you a Lightning Bolt, you can sort of use that knowledge to say to yourself, maybe they don't have Lightning Bolt, it must be the other one. Even in the worst possible case scenario, when you weren't able to make any reads on your opponent's hand, you can simply just choose whatever is better for you to get off of Thief of Dreams, and you have that 50% shot of being right and getting a free card that might be good in the situation. But more often than not, you will at least have had some additional information up to that point in the game, and Thief of Dreams is really going to encourage you to pay close attention to what your opponent's doing with their Magicka every single turn, and what cards you think they might be holding in their hand. So a very powerful card that has seen play in aggressive decks. I've literally seen this card in everything from Aggro Battle Mage to Merrick Battle Mage to mid-range Sorcerer to Control Mage, all kinds of decks. The metagame is still being figured out and still settling, but suffice to say, this is a very powerful card that, while it might not stick in every single one of the deck types that I just mentioned, I do expect Thief of Dreams to see a lot of play for a long time to come. And my personal number 1 from Heroes of Skyrim is one of the shouts we got introduced, Soul Tear. I absolutely love Soul Tear, and I said a few times that I think Endurance kind of got the short end of the stick as far as cards overall. For Constructed, obviously some cards like Cave Bear are absolutely amazing in Arena, but for Constructed, the amount of cards that are injected into competitive decks for Endurance are limited, to say the least, but Soul Tear is one that has made a huge impact. In fact, it's kind of the reason I think Ram Scout is so good right now, and kind of one of the big pulls to play any slow deck using Endurance in the first place. You can often even forget that it has a level 2 and level 3 that's different from the level 1, because I would still play this card if it were simply an action without shout, drawing a creature from your discard pile. The versatility that this card has and the cheap magic it cost, I would probably still play it if it cost 3. I would probably still play it if it cost 3 and wasn't a shout and just had this static effect. That's how good this effect is. But this card is one of the rare cards that really turns your discard pile into a resource. And that's one of the benefits that Legends has compared to some of the other card games on the market, its competitors. You have graveyard or discard pile interactivity. You can see what's in it, and you can make plays accordingly. There are cards that already have interacted, such as Blackworm Necromancer, and even the new Skeletal Dragon from Heroes of Skyrim. But Solitaire is different in that it gives you that choice. To say nothing of its upsides for +2/+2, +5/+5 for the level 2 and level 3 shouts, say nothing of that, you get the choice of what you're getting back. That allows you some redundancy in unique legendary effects like maybe Hiking Emmerich or Red Brahmin or Odiving or Parthenax. Looping Parthenax with this card is a serious late game strategy now. Well, if it happens. A lot of decks that use Parthenax are also going to be playing Solitaire, so you can kind of plan for that. But Solitaire allows you to choose what's right for the situation. Not even necessarily bad against aggro, because you can get back guards, you can get back cards that remove things, such as Murkwater Witch, you can get back Giant Snake to shackle things. It's given Ramscout in particular a ton of versatility in the late game at a very, very cheap magic cost, and it's really sort of pushed endurance, slower decks, like slow endurance using control decks particularly, to the forefront, whereas control seemed kind of dominated by Mage and Monk for a while. We're now seeing a resurgence, and I think that's definitely in large part to Solitaire, so I'm really happy about this card being introduced into the game. But that's just my top 5. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If I skipped over something you think is amazing, I know there's a lot of really powerful, playable, and just really cool cards from Heroes of Skyrim that I didn't include in today's top 5 list. So I'd love to hear your favorite. Make sure you leave a comment, join the conversation, and let me know which cards you've been really excited about in the weeks after Heroes of Skyrim's release. And as always, if you've enjoyed, feel free to leave a like and stay subscribed to the channel for more Legends videos. Make sure you follow my stream in the description, and I'll see you guys next time.